OG, coming to you live every live. And I have a very special guest, somebody very close to my heart. Her name is Foxxy. This girl is sexy. She's very smart. She's got sex appeal. She is a down-to-earth chick who I have admired for many years. Foxxy, how are you doing? And welcome to the pregame.
Thank you. I'm doing quite well. It's cold, but it's good.
Cold is good. All right. Now, if anybody doesn't know, Foxxy has been a professional wrestler and ballet. For how many years did you do it for?
12 or 13. One of those
12
two.
or 13 years, right?
1998 to 2010.
Okay. Now, Foxy, I've seen some tapes of you. You put some tapes up, right?
Yeah.
And I have seen some good stuff of you walking to the ring. Now, tell me, you were 19 at the time, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, who broke you in the business? I mean, who got you involved?
Well, on a technicality, I mean, Gino Caruso at ECPW was the one that trains me.
Right.
But as far as breaking in, I found a flyer for their school at one of their Indy shows when I was 17 years old and called up and, had the whole discussion of this is what you would learn, this is how much you would pay. And then on my 18th birthday, I signed up. And from there, it all just snowballed. Trained for a whole year before even stepping foot outside of the curtain as a manager or anything. And I said it was Gino's school. Gino trained a little bit, but there were multiple people from the New Jersey indie scene that would come in and help train everybody.
All right. Now I know Gino is a great guy. Now he came from the old Damian Stone, which people don't know is my buddy Nunzio. You have the Kodiak Bear who used to be there. You had a few other guys. There used to be a mattress in the lobby that guys used to slum on because they didn't have places to live.
Yeah.
It was true.
It is.
And I think the school is still going on today, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe it is. Last I saw, there was training going on, socially distanced training going on recently, I think over the summer. So It is still up and running.
It is up and running.
Yes.
Okay. Now, if people don't know, Foxxy and I have had an admiration for each other for many years.
Yes.
And because we are involved with each other's significant other, we never really connected, but we've had a very good relationship off air, which has been intriguing and very flattering to both of us. I mean, as soon as I told her, hey, you want to come on the show? She ran to the back, put on her makeup. Me being the diva also, I ran and put on a first face mask. I said, oh, man, my girl's on. Ran a couple miles, came back, took a shower, came on the show. So, I mean, we do for each other. Now, you parlayed yourself into being, after the wrestling business, a good wife and mom.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
You have a beautiful family.
Thank you.
And now you are entering entrepreneurship, which I am very interested in, because a lot of ladies, they rely on their beauty and their look, and they let other people carry them, but they don't carry themselves into business. Okay. Now, Foxxy has parlayed that, and I'll get into that in a bit. But Foxxy, why do you think you had the look, you had the style, you had a certain little charisma? Why do you think you didn't go to one of the major feds at that time?
Well, there's two answers to this. When I started, my goal was ECW or bust. That was it. I didn't want to go to what was WCW and WWF back then because I didn't fit the mold. Back then, the mold was tall, lean, busty, blonde, which I did not fit. I personally wanted to go to Extreme Championship Wrestling because because the way they utilized their females was so different. They were a great combination of sex appeal, but they can kick your ass. And when ECW folded, it came to a point where I wondered whether or not I still wanted to wrestle, because the whole point sometimes is to have a goal and to make it. But I just chose to stay because I grew such a love for being in independent wrestling. And even if an offer came about for WCW back then, or WWE, or then later on, TNA, I honestly don't think I would have taken it. I really enjoyed just being the weekend warrior, so to speak. I loved traveling. I loved the creative freedom. I still loved having my weeks to myself and my family where I could just be Veronica. And I think having that balance is very important in wrestling, because you can lose yourself into, your surroundings or in your gimmicks a lot, which I did. I did do that a lot too in my early days. So that's why. Those are my two answers why.
Well, here's a good point. Now, we talk about ECW. Now, a girl who made it very famous. There are a lot of girls who came through ECW who
Mm-hmm.
were very famous and very pretty, and they could do a lot of things. But we had a young lady come through there. Her name was Lita,
Mm-hmm.
and I was one of the first guys she worked with, and we did stuff together. And then that parlayed into the WWE and her being a superstar, and she had a wonderful career. Another girl who I am very good and fascinated with is Francine, which
Yes.
is the model of ECW,
Mm-hmm.
who was tough, who could do things. Then you had Beulah, who also
Yep.
could do stuff, who was rough and tough. And then you had another one who could scrap, was Dawn Marie, right? So you talk
Mm-hmm.
about the non-blondes of
Mm-hmm.
wrestling. Then, of
Yes.
course, and this is not to exclude anybody, but you had Tammy, who was
Mm-hmm.
in ECW for a little bit, and she was known for her success in WWF, and then
Yes.
came aboard ECW. So she already had a following and a
Mm-hmm.
reputation of being a good ballet, a girl who could scrap and do good things in the ring.
Yeah.
So you have a good following, and you did have some good mentors to follow, which is pretty good, because a lot of times you see garbage on wrestling and say, "Who the hell are these guys following?
Oh my
What
God,
are they looking at?"
I know. Mm-hmm.
It's the shits, right?
Yeah, I know.
So you did have a good thing. I am sorry the fact that you didn't have a chance to get in there, because I think with your shape, your size, and your height, you could have made a difference in the wrestling world, because I was in there in the heyday of it,
Mm-hmm.
and you had the ECW girls. Then I went to WCW, you had the Nitro girls. Then you're looking at
Mm-hmm.
all the divas in WWE, and they were glamorous and Playboy and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
Now, here's another good question for you.
Mm-hmm.
During this time, when Playboy was available, do you think you could have done a Playboy shoot respectfully, tastefully?
Yeah. Back then, no.
Yes. You're just too shy?
um, Shy, yes, but also back then,
Hmm.
I it took a while for me to get my health and my working out up to par, as opposed to just slacking off so much and not looking athletic. So back then, I don't think I would have. Maxim, maybe. Playboy, no. Certain points in my career, I would have, because there were certain points where the shit was slamming. Like I had abs and everything was toned and great. So, I mean, and looking and feeling good has a lot to do with the confidence. So at certain points, maybe, but definitely not the entire at the beginning or throughout the entirety.
So you don't think you had the do you think you had the work ethic to work up to that standard if given the opportunity?
Yes.
You
Because
do.
when I was very disciplined with working out and watching, I don't want to say watching what I ate because that's not the proper word, but eating healthier.
Right.
I do have the discipline to do that because I've done it many times, and if I stick to it, definitely.
You could knock it out of park. I always
Yes.
thought that you could have done it along with your partner who had never got an opportunity. That's Noah Harlow, who is my wife, who, when I was looking at both pictures, I said, okay, these girls could have done something in the wrestling business if given an opportunity. And there were a lot of girls on the scene who did not get that opportunity.
Yeah.
Now you talk about the revolution of women's wrestling. What is your take on women's wrestling today?
I would say it's half and half. I think what some of the women are doing in the ring is very good. It has evolved quite a bit since it
Definitely.
started taking off on the indies, you know. Um in the same right, I feel that right now women's wrestling has become a standard for any girl that wants to be in wrestling right now, which is unfair because there are more roles for women in the wrestling business than wrestling. There's managing, valeting, ring announcing, refereeing. There's so many different avenues that can be taken. And I think a lot of women aspiring to be in the business automatically feel pressured to be a wrestler because that is what's in. And unfortunately, under that pressure, there's a disconnect where they get it, but it doesn't translate over into the ring or into their selling or into their character. And you could tell that they would be just far better suited as a manager or as someone just to be a vocal piece for someone else. So while women's wrestling right now does have its great moments, it has its great women in the ring, and they're doing a lot of outstanding things, there's also the ones that should unfortunately take a step back because they would be far better suited in a different role.
I get you. Now, when you talk about women's wrestling, right,
Mm-hmm.
we have different groups that we look at.
Okay.
We look at the WWE, and you
Mm-hmm.
have Sasha Banks, you get Charlotte Flair, you have Nia Jack. We talk about bodies and different looks, right?
Yes.
You have uh, Baszler, you have Deville, who just came back.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, my favorite, Dana Brooke, who's I think is like a knockout. I mean, she has improved so much,
She has.
and you look at her, and she hasn't gotten that spot yet.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was the girl who did the Australian thing, Dashwood,
Oh, uh,
Emma. Emma.
yes, Emma.
You talk about a girl who came up, and I said that girl has everything to be world champion. I
Yeah.
said
Mm-hmm.
that for years. And when she wrestled Osaka, and she outperformed her at the pay per view, and then on Monday night she got fired.
Mm-hmm.
Not supposed to out wrestle. Well, if you're better than somebody, why am I supposed to hold back? A
Exactly.
la Vito Lagrasso. Okay, Vito, listen, we got to make this guy look good. Can't go out there. I said, but what am I training for? What am I doing?
Mm-hmm.
I get here to sit on the sideline. Yeah, I never got that. But then you look at that, and you look at NXT, and they have a whole group of young girls,
Mm-hmm.
young, innocent 20-year-olds who don't have the savvy or the experience to be in the wrestling business. They're just coming in fresh,
Yeah.
very pretty. Hopefully they learn. But then you have the other avenue. You have AEW, which this is not a knock on them, but I think they get the leftovers of what's out there. There are a couple of
Mm-hmm.
there are a couple of girls who are very good, but then you have some people they don't have a clue what they're doing and they don't listen to what the concept of wrestling 101 is, and
Mm-hmm.
that's discouraging. And I think that puts the bad mark on women's wrestling.
Yeah.
How do you feel when you watch this stuff compared to what you did? Did you have people mentoring and tutoring you who had experience, or did you just go and do it? I mean, this is not about, shooting on anybody. This
Yeah.
is
No.
your experience on what you thought
Mm-hmm.
was right at the time?
Um, See, I had trainers and I had mentors when it came to being at the wrestling school. But when it came to wrestling, I kind of got thrown in there. Um, I was always put up against females that were trained less in the ring than I was. And I was given the bare minimum training when it came to in ring from
Right.
the guys there. A friend of mine, Sean Sheridan, he actually would train with me and then decided, you know what, you want to know more. So we would go to another wrestling school and pay to train. And I got taught by him a little bit more. But when it came to actually physically wrestling, I was just thrown in there. Like my very first real match was against a manager named Luxurious Lynn. Love her to pieces till this very day. But she openly admitted to me that day she doesn't know how to wrestle. And I'm supposed to have a match with her. So
Wow.
many times in the very beginning, I got put in the matches, and me having less than a year of experience was the veteran. So a lot of it was on the fly, and you work with what you have, and I actually joke about it in my book. I call myself the one that everyone called to turn shit into gold, because while I didn't have much experience, I still knew enough, and I was always put in there to make somebody else look good, which I would do and had no problem with.
Right.
But yeah.
Apples and oranges. Now,
Mm-hmm.
your husband, who is
Mm-hmm.
a friend of mine, his name is Damien, and he came through Johnny Rods' school.
Yes.
And I know, like many who came through there, they said once you go through Vito, you never want to go back. But the hate that was given to me because I trained, and then later on, the guys realized
Mm-hmm.
he was teaching us. And I wasn't being a jerk. I wasn't being a dick. I was just saying, guys, this is what you do. Everybody forgets. I started out in the WWF doing TVs in my first year. I was on WCW TV before that.
Mm-hmm.
I wrestled the pros, the Bret Harts, the Boss Mans, the Davy Boys, the Legion of Doom. I wrestled. I wasn't the average guy. So on the Indies, I never wrestled guys my own caliber. I wrestled the pros, the Honky Tonks, the Jimmy Snookers, the
Mm-hmm.
Cousin Lukes, all these guys. So when I used to train at the school, I wasn't the student. I wasn't the average student. I was
Yeah.
already experienced. I had live raw matches. Guys used to hate training with me because I used to be, guys, you got to do this, guys, you got to do
Mm-hmm.
this, you got to do this. And if I used to, they thought I was being rough with them, but this was the way he trained. And I know your husband was one of the group. Not that he has any hate for me; he's got much love for me.
Mm-hmm.
But when it came time to train, nobody likes to train. The old thing of the Pepsi challenge. If you went through that, Jesus Christ, if you survived, man, hey, come to my house. Let's grab something to eat. Hey, you're one of my boys. And the guys who didn't bitch and complain, they all became my boys. They all became
Mm-hmm.
friends with me. And it's sad to say, but during that time, I would be in there for 4 hours. There'd be 20 guys standing outside waiting for me to finish. Then everybody would jump in the ring. Sad. Sad.
Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned that, because Damien and I were talking about you just last week. Um, I forgot how it had come up, but I remember him blatantly saying, this is something that Vito taught us or said to us at training. And of course, it didn't click with us then, but it clicks with you like much later, where it's like, yeah, he was right. I'm not even kidding. He said that last week as we were talking about you.
Do you know how many guys have gone through? I've gone through that guys come back years later and say, hey, you were right. But you wasted 6 and 7 years of your career because you
Mm-hmm.
wanted to fight my knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a shame that I don't share this with guys today. And you talk about diet and being disciplined. I don't know if everybody knows, but I've been saying I've been on this protein diet for 3.5 months. My old bodybuilding thing, right? So Saturday, I said, let me entertain this. Let me entertain my wife. I put on a dress. It looked like I never left TV.
Nice.
So when you talk about that lean
Mm-hmm.
and body, and you talk about shape, and you say you can do this, it does work, but nobody wants to put the time in. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's what the thing of the business is. Just like when you were coming up, there were guys who running around doing these indie shows, but then everybody forgot about the training.
Mm-hmm. It's instant gratification. Everything's now, 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 now. I want to look good right now, but you got to put in the work for it. I want to be a good wrestler now. I don't want to be an inventor, but you got to put in the work for it. Like,
Now, what was the high? What was the low point of your wrestling career? Because we always talk about that bad, then we'll go. What is the low point of your wrestling career?
okay.
We're talking pay, shitty accommodations, worst venue, horrible guys treating you. What is the worst
Oh,
scenario?
honey, do we have time? No. To be honest with you, it was actually something that I got reminded about this week.
Go ahead.
There was one company that I worked for that I actually really enjoyed working for a lot, and they didn't like me. So, while I would still do some really cool spots for them, and I would help them behind the scenes by like making videos for them to put up on YouTube, when it came down to it, they just did not acknowledge my existence there when it came to like recaps or recap videos or who I worked with. And essentially, it's one of those tree falling in the woods moments where if you weren't at a show, you would never know I did anything with them because I was completely erased from their history. And again, I wasn't even acknowledged while I was there. And it was so unfortunate because it's like, wow, I liked working with you guys. I liked the people I worked with. I enjoyed the locker room, and y'all didn't like me because of rumors, and that was my thanks. So that one, of all the things that I've gone through, that one definitely hurt the most at that time.
People not liking you for hard work. I've definitely experienced that. Now, what is the highlight of your wrestling career where we could put a smile on your face and say, hey, I did this?
Oh boy. Highlight. I would say my first title. I only held, yes, my first and only title. I used to work for Ace Wrestling, which, as some viewers and listeners might know, is where AJ Lee got her start. And they never had a women's division. And since I was on roster, they asked me to do a couple matches, which I had no problem doing. And they needed to bridge the gap in order to bring in more female wrestlers at the time. So they put the title on me, which, I mean, I knew, hey, this is to bring in more women. And I was totally cool with that. But still to have that trust and respect of you're going to be the first and you're going to be the one to bring in the others so that we could start a division was definitely a highlight.
First Ace Women's World Heavyweight Champion.
Yeah.
Very good. That is definitely an accolade to put in the books. That's awesome stuff. That's awesome stuff. Now, being that we're talking about the highs and lows, and we've talked about all the stuff, could you see yourself going to a developmental territory like Deep South, Ohio Valley, NXT, Florida Championship Wrestling? Could you see yourself doing anything like that and 24/7 devoting your life to wrestling?
No.
No.
I couldn't.
Good answer. That a lot of people say yes because they say, "Oh yeah, I can do it." But it's good when I hear no because you're not willing to make that deal with the devil. Go ahead, tell people why.
Well, I mean, it's also a matter of, when you get into wrestling, one of the biggest things you want is creative freedom. You're not going to get that in any kind of developmental. You're not going to get that if you get signed. And it makes me laugh sometimes to see people on Twitter, complain about the fact that, oh, they were so good, or, oh, this was so much better. Well, this is what happens. You are at the whim of someone else's ideas and someone else's schedule. You're not going to have any creative freedom. But also, in order to be good at wrestling or managing or anything in the world of wrestling, you need to have your feet grounded in who you are. And if you're doing something like that 24/7 at a developmental and you have no time for yourself, then you're not going to be any good to yourself in wrestling or to the fans.
I get you. What are your thoughts on intergender wrestling? Is it a yay or nay in your book?
It's a half and half. It's definitely a half and half, because when I was coming up, intergender wrestling was actually pretty huge. Since there weren't many female wrestlers, there wasn't a whole lot of opponents, and had to wrestle men. And if you were trained with men like I was, it's no big deal. But back then, there was still a balance to it, where any guy I wrestled was usually my height and scrawny, so there was a fairness about it. Whereas now, I do disagree with it, because you can't suspend your belief enough to have someone my size, my height, up against somebody taller, bulkier, bigger. There's no way it makes sense. If I get hit in real life by someone bigger than me, I'm out. And the whole point of wrestling is to be as real as possible. And there is absolutely nothing realistic in a 5'2" girl up against a guy twice my size without kicking them in the nuts at least 20 times over.
Now, I'm going to tell you something. I don't like intergender wrestling, for the point you said. Now, I did intergender wrestling when I wore the dress, but I never hit a lady.
Mm-hmm.
I would dance with them. I'd schoolboy them. I would never take them down. They could smack me. They could do whatever. But then I'd turn it around on them to make it comical.
Mm-hmm.
Because in reality, if Vito LaGrasso, Big Vito, former WCW hardcore champion, actually hit you in the face or punched you,
mm-hmm.
and you got up, that take away all my credibility as being a tough guy, especially from my lifestyle as a real tough guy on the streets of Staten Island and the 5 boroughs. Because if a woman's getting up from me, every jerk is going to come up and want to challenge me, right? So it gives you no credibility. That brings me to Tessa Blanchard and Sami Callihan when they did the title fight, right? How could you do all these DDTs, all this stuff? You're punching this girl in the face, you're hitting her, you're clotheslining her, and she's getting up. What credibility does that say for you when you're fighting a man?
No, I agree 100%. That's the part of it that I completely just agree with you about. Because again, when it was like I said, when it was back then, it would be me, someone literally my size, scrawny, more than likely playing the gay gimmick, so it had a balance. But to be put against anyone bigger than myself, it didn't make sense. There's no realness.
Now, I could see myself, right? Now, if I had to pick one lady who I was going to wrestle, be in the ring with, just not having a match, just say do a spot.
Yeah.
I would pick Nia Jax. Why? Because she's the biggest girl and looks like she could do something. How would I go about it? I would do something to where, I'd be laughing at her and charge the turnbuckle. She moves. I knock myself silly. She goes to the other turnbuckle. I moves. Turn myself silly. What? Scoop up, slam. I get up. She whips me into the turnbuckle. Take a front bump. Come back up. Here comes a Samoan drop. I'm already dazed, so it looks believable. So I'm selling what she's giving me. She's not punching me, but I rocked myself. Did it to myself. She didn't do it to me. So if she's actually doing a move to me after I rock myself, hey, we're cool. But if she's going to punch me and she's going to stand there mano a mano, it's not going to work, people. Not going to work. And I definitely appreciate your analysis on that, which brings me to your book. Now, you have a book coming out. What is the name and title of your book?
The title of it is Tell Me Who I'm Supposed to Be.
Okay.
And it's a nod to the fact that I've had 4 different names and personalities when it came to wrestling. So it's like a little inside joke of, okay, which one do you want? You want Foxy, Foxy Dreams, Foxy, Veronica? Who am I supposed to be?
Okay.
You know?
So now your book is about 4 different personalities in your wrestling career.
Yes.
How deep are you getting into each personality?
Very deep,
Mad deep.
mad deep. Because with each personality, not only came, working in a different way and working with different companies and different looks, but with each personality came a whole lot of different things in real life that occurred um, because of independent wrestling. Like, for example, Foxy Dreams. That whole thing, Damien and I were engaged, and we goes into us getting married and everything else that we did as a couple, but also as a wrestling couple and the places that we worked. And that also encompasses when I met Noelle. Is so every section of a character is definitely a different key period in my life of things that would not have happened without independent wrestling.
Okay. Now, when you talk about the different personalities in your wrestling career,
Mm-hmm.
do you bring your real life into these personalities of somebody you want to be, somebody you wish you could be?
Um, I did. In the very beginning, I didn't. I wanted a very distinct separation between my real life and my real personality and my character. But once I started working as Foxy Dreams, that's when I let more of myself shine because, I was the goth kid in high school. So it was a lot of fun to actually be that person ringside and starting to bring my own personality to that character. And then the Foxy character gave a comfort as well. Because while it was over exaggerated from my real personality, it was still bits and pieces of me that I found comfort in, which gave me more confidence in the ring and ringside and allowed me to really just be in the moment as opposed to pretending, if that makes sense.
Makes sense. Now, in your everyday life, do you have a lot of the similarities in your character in wrestling? Like you said, you're gothic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, being gothic, you dress a certain way. And I notice your children are very liberated, which is very cool because they're allowed to have their long hair. They're allowed to have their own personalities. They're allowed to do their own thing. So, do you see yourself living your character life in your real life, and do you take it to, a different level?
Um, I do. I definitely do. One of the things I say in my house, especially to my kids, is that being weird is awesome and to embrace your weird. So when it comes to some of the things I did as my character, I do bring it into, my real life, whether it's little mantras like that to the kids or even just I find myself, listening to music and I'm doing an entrance. So I definitely bring the two together.
No, that's awesome because then, your kids, what people don't realize is that when you have that kind of personality, guys, and your kids see that, you could be free, you're doing your thing, you're able to be, yourself, and their kids get that personality. Where do they get it from? They get it from you. Because
Mm-hmm.
if you're one of those households who's always with the F word and F this, F that, F this, yeah, and it doesn't matter who you're talking to, the kids are going to talk the certain way.
Mm-hmm.
If you're happy and you're doing these exotic things, you see your kid dancing through the hallway or doing
Mm-hmm.
something eccentric, and he's having a good time at life. He's got the rest of his life to tell everybody to go F off. But during your childhood, you're supposed to enjoy your childhood to where you're supposed to be a kid.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah,
Now,
absolutely.
when we first started Facebook, your oldest son, he uh, he had a shyness problem,
Yes. Yes, he did.
and I used to get on him all the time, and like, I said, not do this, do that, and then, I started encouraging him, and then I watched. It's funny, guys. We're friends, but I watch everybody's family grow up on Facebook, and I've seen
Mm-hmm.
him develop a personality, come out of his shell, start to do karate, start to be, get older and have more characteristics
Yeah.
of what he wants to do. Like his father is very into the mixed martial arts. So the kids are. And mixed martial arts and fighting actually help people because it gives them confidence to do things.
Mm-hmm.
And it
Yeah.
doesn't make them a pushover. And look has a big thing to do with it because maybe not everybody has the coolest look or the coolest hair or the best clothes or the best sneakers.
Yeah.
So where do you go? Gotta come with what God gives you, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I think is an awesome thing. And it looks like your kids have great personalities because you allow them that freedom. Now, are where you live, do the people in the neighborhood accept this from your household or do they back it up?
No, they fully accept it. Where we live right now, I've lived here since about 2002.
Right.
So when David and I got engaged, he moved in over here. So we've been here for quite a while. When I first moved in, of course, I got those side eyes like, who is this girl with this bright hair and this black lipstick? But now they see us all the time and say hi. Um, when they saw our oldest son's hair go orange because that's what he wanted, they were like, "Yeah, we expected this." Like they're very welcoming and they're very cool with all of it. I
No,
mean, I
that's
try not to play
very
my
good.
music too loud because our music differences around here are very.
Right. And the one thing I appreciate more than anything is that Damien doesn't play his stupid videos in the morning when he's on the bus. That used to kill me. I mean, Jesus Christ. But it's good to see that your family and your book and your personalities are well rounded into a family atmosphere.
Yes, definitely.
Now, with your book, how many pages are you in?
Um, I when I left off, I was on page 248.
248. How many
Yeah,
pages you want to go?
however many it takes.
Hmm. So would you think 500 pages? Would you think 350?
um,
That's a lot of
um,
writing.
it is. I mean, I'm almost done. I just started the last section. Um, I'm gonna say maybe between 350 and 400. This is before editing, of course. This is all just the first draft. Nothing's edited out or anything yet. So I'm gonna estimate maybe about 4 before I edit anything out.
4 before editing.
Yeah.
Now, with your book,
Mhm.
which publishing house would you like to go with?
There is one in particular that I have in mind. I
Mhm.
have my sights set on ECW Press in Canada. They've published many a wrestling book as well as a wrestling autobiography and memoir. So I am definitely setting my eyes on them. And if by chance they say no, then I'm going to self publish.
Okay. Now, when you go to a publishing company, say like the ECW Press, how do they do? Do they pay you for the book? Do they give you a front end? Do they supply the books? Do they manufacture the books? What do they do?
They would be manufacturing the books, where it would be for sale either in bookstores, Amazon, their website, and anywhere else the books are sold. Um, as far as the payouts, I'm not entirely sure. That's something that would come across if they say, yes, we want to publish your book. And then we further discuss it from there on how it would go.
I think because I wanted to do a book myself, I think the big thing is to get front end money,
Mm-hmm.
and then for the book could be a couple grand, it could be 7,500, and then they publish, and then they go through um, book signings, and then you go on tour, you go to different places, you sell your book, you try to sell your book, and you go do your thing, which would be
Mm-hmm.
an awesome thing. ECW Press out of Canada, anything ECW people want to read about. which is a cult following, which is kind of like what you are, because you got four different characters. You have the ECW background. You're highlighting that you wanted to be an ECW diva,
Mm-hmm.
which is good, and your idols come from there.
Yeah.
So I think like you got your foot in the door with that. It's just a matter of just somebody giving you the kick in the door,
Yeah.
as to say.
Mm-hmm.
So, Veronica, what else are you doing today besides the book? What is your everyday life like out of wrestling, being a mom, living at home? Go.
Um, it's pretty standard and very routine. Wake up. That way I can get some quiet and some coffee in, and then you wake up the kids. It would be wake them up and take them to school, but now it's wake them up and set them up with their virtual learning in the other rooms.
Hmm.
Now, once they start their learning, I go into my little space and I write from 9 to about 2. And after that, it's straighten up, start dinner. While they're, doing their decompressing from school thing, we all come together for dinner at about 5 or 6 o'clock. And from there, what we call family time. It could be all of us watching a movie together. It could be us watching Vine compilations on YouTube. And certain nights, the two older boys stay up and then we let them watch wrestling. The younger one goes to bed because he's 5 and crazy.
I hear you. I hear you.
But overall, the days are routine, but a little bit chaos because we have the 3 kids, we have 4 cats. So, but there's never a dull moment. There's always something funny going on with one of us, whether like
I hear you. Now, I think that this interview will help you in a way, because how many times do people get to find out what the real person is about, what
mm-hmm,
their career is about, how life has changed, how
yeah,
wrestling is not everything, and then you do have a real life.
yeah,
Life after
definitely.
wrestling, people, it does happen. And here is proof right here. You get to write a book, you get to do things, you get to be a mom, you get to do all this kind of stuff. I know that you look forward to my Twitter posts every day.
I do. I wake up and I see them. I'm like, yeah, you were late one day. I'm like, where's the post? I'm like waiting for it.
Yeah, but I can't give you everything once in a while. I gotta make you wait a little bit. You appreciate me more. But this has been one awesome interview. One of my favorite girls in the wrestling business, Foxxy. Where can we find you, and what can we do to see your plugs, see everything, get everything? Go.
Okay. Well, everybody could hit me up on any social media at Viva Foxxy Foxxy. That's VIVAFOXYFOXXY. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, all under that handle. So it's really easy to find. If you would like to support my journey through writing my book and coming along the whole process with me through editing, marketing, cover art, and more, I definitely encourage you to join my Patreon page, which is patreon.com/FoxyFoxy. It serves as a book companion because the incentives that you get with whichever tier that you choose coincide with the book in terms of watching me react to old wrestling footage I have on VHS or reading a deleted scene, book soundtracks that I've created for the chapters, and so much more. Tiers start at $1, $3, $6, and $13 a month. So it's very convenient for all. And everything unlocks the minute you sign up. However, there are free things all month of January, so you guys can get a taste of what would be if you joined.
Now that's awesome stuff. Now, Foxy, when you do your Patreon and when you do your avatar, do you put any old wrestling photos up?
Yes, I do. I do a Throwback Thursday picture along with the story that goes with the picture. So I put a lot of old stuff up there all the time, as well as real life stuff. I maintain that balance because, again, this is about me wrestling, but it's also about life. And I want everyone to see both sides, well, all sides.
No, you know what it is that a lot of guys when they see a young lady, a very pretty young lady, they want to see sexy pictures,
Hmm.
so they will go and do all that. And somebody has said the nerd herds, where I first came affiliated with, what the hell are the nerd herds? Now you didn't mention them the whole time. And I said, look at this stuff. She's hanging out with Damien way too long. You need to get out of there, girl, and come and be with the BIGV from the LOD and live a smooth life. But the nerd herds, come on.
Yes, Nerd
People
Herder.
are nerd herds.
Nerd Herders is a monthly podcast slash Twitch stream that I do with my husband and our greatest friends, Dan Law and Craig Lagans, in which we give a roundabout of the entire month in nerd culture, from comic books to movies to weird pop culture news that we find online and discuss in great length. That way, you guys don't have to scroll through all these different websites to find out what's going on in the month. That can be listened to on the last month of every Wednesday at twitch.tv/danlaw83. It is also up on youtube.com/danlaw83 in case you missed any.
In case you missed anything. I don't know about this nerd herd thing. I mean, I don't know. I'm into Versace, full little watches, Rolex, fine dining, the country club, pools, tanning, working out.
See, but that's what makes us great. The opposites attract. You like all that, and I'm sitting here like Assassin's Creed and X-Men. And see, I'm the dork, and you're the hot guy, and that's why we're like an 80s movie.
We are an 80s movie.
We are an 80s movie.
We are an 80s movie. All right, guys. Listen, this has been one of the best interviews I've had, and I have actually enjoyed 46 minutes and 43 seconds of my favorite girl, Foxxy, here on the pregame. Foxxy, thank you very much for coming in today. I greatly appreciate it. Good luck with your book.
Thank
Give
you.
us one more time. Give us your plugs in case somebody didn't, they didn't catch it because you have the nerd herds. They're all, googly over there. But give it to us one more time before you go.
Yes, you can find me at Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, and TikTok at Viva Foxxy. That's VIVA FOXY and patreon.com/Foxxy.
All right. Foxxy, thank you very much for coming on tonight.
Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. This has been the pregame with Big Vito and Foxxy. Foxxy, I'll see you later. Take care. Thank you for coming on. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, guys. We are definitely off air, and I think we're done. I'm trying to find it. All right. Guys, we are good now. That was Foxxy. Everything was good. And I am happy that everything is cool. What an interview. What an interview. I can't even say enough. We are waiting now for Virtue with Getting Color. I hope everybody is going to be good. I hope everybody enjoying that. That was some of the best back and forth that we've had here on the pregame. Last week we had Goldilocks. And guys, I'm trying to get all the ladies on here because I think that, having the ladies come on, they have some very good stories. And all the ladies trying to be I'm getting a click from you. Let people know how to subscribe. Click the like button on the bottom, guys, and subscribe to the Big Vito brand. Subscribe. Dan Law. I don't think people are aware of how tough wrestling is for ladies. You're actually right, Dan. All right, let's see who we go. We are going to be here with Getting Color, and I am adding Virtue. Virtue, how are you doing tonight, buddy?
Hey, what's up? Welcome to the BigVitoBrand.com. Getting Color. Right. Here we are.
Go ahead, take it away. It's all yours.
Dude, we're going to start right from the get-go on these football scores, NFL. So yesterday, the Bills beat the Colts by 3. I remember you saying the Colts could give them fits, and
Yes.
it was a close game. The Rams beat the Seahawks 30-20, and I noticed that you kind of were shocked by that. Do you know the Rams had the best defense in the league on paper?
On paper.
Yeah, well, but they had the best defense and they beat the Seahawks. So
I just thought the Seahawks with Russell Wilson was going to do something great, and they came out flat.
yep,
That was the shocker game for me.
good defenses, I'm telling you, make it tough in the playoffs. A lot of people now the Buccaneers did beat Washington, but that wasn't an easy game for them. And what people need to realize is yes, Washington was only 7-9 for whatever reason, but they had one of the top 5 defenses as well. So, what's your thoughts on those 3 games from yesterday? And then we'll talk about today's.
I think the Seahawks, I'm still in shock the Seahawks are not in the playoffs. They had a great season. I think they had 12 wins, 11 wins this year. And they had a great defense. Their defense clicked at the right time at the end of the year. Jamal Adams went out with an injury that was huge for them. And he's been a sack machine all year. I the Bills winning, it was due their time, but the Buccaneers, let me tell you something. Like you made a point of good defense. Now, this Henke guy came out of nowhere and was a practice squad guy. Everybody thought this was going to be a throwaway game. This kid came in and he played. And he represented a small-time college. Only a month ago, he was, doing his schooling. He was, he was the John Starks of the league, packing groceries. And there he is playing in game 1 of the playoffs. This kid, Henke, just got himself a contract for next year. Somebody will pick him up to be a number 2. Don't be surprised if he winds up as a number 1.
Yeah, and that was, like I said, a thrilling game, and Brady won. Out of the 6 quarterbacks yesterday that played, only Brady and Josh Allen had over 100 QBR quarterback rating. And
you know what was great about Brady is that he had 200 yards by halftime, right? And you thought he was going to throw for another 400-yard game. He came close, and he's been on 2 TDs, no interceptions, 400 yards. This has been his thing. And guys, if he didn't have all those drops, he had a lot of drops yesterday. He definitely would have had at least 500 yards passing.
Antonio Brown's getting in the end zone lately.
Antonio Brown, the biggest pickup of the year, and they all knocked it. But this guy is the safety valve, and the other secret weapon they have is Gronk. Gronk didn't do anything but block it. They needed Gronk to block yesterday. And that guy Brait came and had a monster game as far as the tight end.
Yes, he did. And he got a touchdown, a near touchdown too. So didn't Godwin. So it could have been farther than it was. Like it could have been more convincing of a win than it was.
Yes, it was.
Now, today, the Browns and Steelers are going on in about 15 minutes. So that's the late game.
Right.
The Saints beat the Bears 21-9. Michael Thomas was back. Kamara was back from COVID. And then, of course, the Ravens beat the Titans 20-13. So 2 relatively low-scoring games, relatively close games, too. What do you think about them?
Now, the Saints.
We'll do the Saints first, yeah.
The Saints were, you knew they were going to win, but the Saints didn't have an easy time of it because they struggled for 3 quarters.
It was tight. I don't know if that's just because the Bears have a decent defense or what, but usually in a playoff game, you're supposed to give it your all from the get-go, right? But maybe some of these, it's different, right? Playoff pressure, it's harder. The defenses come out more energetic.
You know who Mitch reminds me of?
Who?
Carson Wentz.
Oh, yeah, and it's going to be benched.
Great potential, but just can't do it in the big game. And that guy, he had a great end of the season, brought them to the playoffs, and then he did this. You're like, all right, back to the drawing board. Then you look at a guy like Henke with Tampa Bay, and this guy was buzzing around 300 yards passing, 60 yards rushing. You're like, okay, something's missing here.
How about these stats? 179 yards passing, no touchdowns. 136 yards rushing by the same player, 1 touchdown. Lamar Jackson. Now you ready for this?
Yeah.
Talk about regular season stat muncher against bad teams. Derrick Henry led the league with 2,000 plus yards.
Right.
He had 18 rushes for 40 yards today, 2.2 yards per carry. Welcome to the playoffs. Good night. See you next year. What do you have to say about that?
They locked him down. When you key on the best player and you know that's their offense, they shut him down. And when you just, guys don't pay attention, guys running wild. But when you have to key up on somebody, it's just like Tom Brady, right? They kept Gronkowski in there to block the whole game. They put extra blockers, extra tight ends, extra linemen. They protected Brady. This is the same thing with them. The defense went after this Henry guy, and they dominated him.
Yep, shut them down. I'm going to be interested to see if the Browns rushing game can beat up on the Steelers tonight, because I think Nick Chubb if he has a big game, if him and Kareem Hunt do their thing, they could upset the Steelers. I don't know if it would be an upset or not, but maybe.
Yeah, but everybody's looking at the last game and saying, but the Steelers rested Big Ben. They rested all their starters. They won the game. That wasn't a real contest. This is the contest with these guys having rest. Ben is a proven commodity in the playoffs. And
he is older and he can't move around too much, but that's why he's got the quicker release now. So I'm gonna watch it when we're done doing our shows tonight. It should be about the end of the first quarter.
Yeah.
So that's football. Now I want to go over to basketball briefly, because then there's some big baseball news. The Knicks are losing again tonight. The Nuggets are beating them by 20-some with only about 7 minutes to go. So that's kind of discouraging, because they had a little winning streak. They lost to Oklahoma City Friday. They're losing to Denver tonight. But you know who else is losing to Oklahoma City right now as we speak?
Who's that?
The Brooklyn Nets. So Brooklyn definitely is in a funk. So if the Knicks, lose a couple games this weekend, Brooklyn, Kyrie's going home on personal. Kevin Durant's out with an injury.
What's the story with Kyrie Irving? He's not playing because of the capital thing?
I don't know for sure. I just saw that it was personal, and I did not delve into that. But what I did notice is I didn't know Kevin Durant was injured. And so that's a new twist there, because he actually is playing tonight. So he is playing tonight, but Kyrie is still out. So I think Kevin Durant missed a game.
Right.
He is playing tonight, but Kyrie is still not.
Want to know what's sad?
Let me see if go ahead, Vito. I'll see if I can see why. It says personal.
The Nets spent all this money, and they can't get these guys on the court, and it's just the beginning of the season.
It's all speculation on Kyrie. It just keeps saying personal, personal, personal. So we will have to wait and see how this pans out. Although, if they both do lose tonight, Vito, the Knicks will still be 500, right? Not the end of the world. The Nets will fall to below 500. So there you have it.
All
right, baseball.
Baseball.
I mean, let's here it is. Indians. They're not going to be called the Indians anymore, but the Cleveland baseball team traded Lindor and Carrasco for prospects to your New York Mets.
Awesome trade for the Mets. Hey, but it was a good trade for the Indians too, because they got a new middle infield in Jimenez and Rosario, because they don't have a second baseman, they don't have a shortstop, so they plugged 2 holes with this trade, which I don't think people realize. And the people then, the guys, the prospects they got are good prospects. Is it the caliber of Lindor and Carrasco? That's a lot of money to take on. But when you talk about getting rid of players who might not be the big star that Lindor is or Carrasco, hey, the Indians did good. The Mets did good. This trade should transcend into a great thing.
Yeah, and did Springer? I don't think Springer signed yet, did he?
Did not. That's why they're looking at Jackie Bradley Jr. They're talking about Chris Bryant and Bauer and Hand. Now, if I were the Mets, and this guy's Springer is still jerking around, right? Let him go. Take Jackie Bradley Jr. You put him in center field. Great center fielder. If you trade for Chris Bryant, right, you got a solid third baseman. You got a solid center fielder. You up the middle with Lindor and McNeil, McCann, Jackie Bradley. You just short up your whole defense, right? They got Carrasco. If they sign Bauer and they get Hand, guys, you're talking championship team.
Springer does have that playoff and World Series. I mean, granted, you can say cheater, but experience. But we'll see where he goes. Vito, we're going to bounce over to some wrestling topics.
Wrestling.
That's what people always want. We had a question on Twitter I'm going to go back to, and he asks you, so we're going to get out of the way so I don't forget. So this might be kind of cumbersome here, but he wants to know who your top 3 worst and favorite, I guess, least favorite and favorite wrestlers from the major companies that you worked with in the ring. So I don't know if you really want to, unless you really want to throw someone under the bus, that's up to you if you want to go over the 3 people that you did not like working with. But then he wants to know, and you might not even have the 3. You might just do your top one, but you want to answer that one?
Van Vader.
Ooh, there you go.
I was
Big
going
Vader.
to fight Vader in Japan. Legit fist fight. No bullshit. Didn't like him. He didn't like me. He was like, he used to tell me, your teeth are too white. Your body's too good. You look too good. You work too hard. He was being a jerk off to me. I didn't like him. He didn't like me. I got tired of it. I told Animal and Hawk, I'm saying I'm fighting. I said, just take my back, make sure nobody walked. Animal and Hawk went to the ring and said, what'd you do to Vito? And they were going to kick his ass.
Well, so I take it this was one of your least favorite people?
Least favorite people. Vader.
Because of, okay, cool.
He was just an asshole. And I know the man has passed. He wasn't just an asshole to me. He was an asshole to a lot of people. But you talk about least favorite, he's the least favorite. There are guys who I don't care for. Yeah. But you talk about least, I give it to you because we're talking straight.
Yeah.
And this is no disrespect to him or his family. This is just straight shoot. So,
now, how about your favorite to work with? To counter that, just again, we won't do top 3, but you got a favorite that comes to mind?
Favorite to work with is Bret Hart, and I'll tell you why. My first match with Bret Hart was when I was in the WWF, and he had just won the Intercontinental Championship, and that was his first TV match. And he was really rough with me. When I came back to TV, he came up to me and apologized to me. He says, I was a little rough with you. I apologize. I said, that's okay, man. I'm just trying to be like one of you guys. He says, you are like one of us. I asked to work with you today. And, I wound up working with Bret Hart 4 times, always gave me offense. Then when I made it to WCW, Bret was there, and I had my first match, Great American Bash against Disco and Lash LaRue. I came back. He said, you did an awesome job. You definitely come a long way. He said, you should be proud of yourself. That's pretty big.
And that's good. Yeah. And that's why I'm glad we get these questions on Twitter. And I want to always make sure I ask you these. And again, he wanted top 3, but we got a lot of content to go. So maybe you can answer him. He tagged you on Twitter. You can fill in the blanks on Twitter with the rest of them. But Vader, Bret Hart, very good to know that, because I did not know that.
No,
all right,
guys, these are true stories. If you got them, ask them. If you don't, Virtual, pick it up. If I see it, I'll answer it on Twitter. Go ahead, Virtual, go.
Now, on Raw, Legends Night. And they just don't know what to do with these legends. But it spiked the rating. You know how Raw had been doing 1.6, 1.7 million, and it got over 2 million. But they just don't really do anything with the legends. Flair was out there crying, and it all led to the return of Goldberg at the end. Now, rumors had Goldberg coming back because, we know that he has a contract for about 2 matches a year because he didn't do have the Roman match last year because Roman went home because of the virus. You thought that's what maybe they were going to do. Instead, they bring him back to confront Drew McIntyre. So I just want your general thoughts on Goldberg's return and how can either guy, how can this be good for either guy? Because Goldberg can't go more than 5 minutes. Drew's been pretty much a workhorse. And he's been wrestling guys that can give lengthy matches. Like, what's the end game here? What do you think on Goldberg coming back?
It's a hot shot angle. It is something's going to be quick. Remember when Goldberg fought Lesnar and he beat Lesnar?
That first time was like he beat him in like seconds.
Seconds.
Yeah.
This has that written all over it.
Ooh.
Okay. So McIntyre does the job. They go to WrestleMania. Roman Reigns, Goldberg, spear versus spear for both titles on the line. They're going to make one unified title. That's my take on it. Unless they bring Brock Lesnar back to challenge. But I think they want that Goldberg Reigns match. And I think if it headlines WrestleMania, that's where it's going. They made Drew McIntyre look like a punk when Goldberg pushed him down on his ass like a kid.
Did you know the story behind that? I think Drew McIntyre was supposed to cut a promo saying, "Why are all the legends here?" Which is out of Drew's character because he's been a babyface. Right. And so Randy Orton was doing that, as you would expect Randy Orton's character to do, backstage kind of one-offs. I don't know if they informed Goldberg, but Goldberg came out and told Drew, why did you disrespect all the legends? But it never happened on TV. So everybody watching was scratching their heads. That's how last minute this show is. Like, what's your thoughts on that? That Goldberg went out to the ring and they cut something, and it's like the communication made it awkward. The lack of communication.
Well,
this is professional, isn't it?
It's supposed to be, but the things that go on backstage at the WWE with the rewriting,
yep.
Not everybody's informed. And actually, it made for good TV because there's the heavyweight champ getting knocked on his ass by some old timer, some geezer, some legend, and you look at it and you say, okay, what the hell just happened here? Here's the heavyweight champ. That's his house. You represent your house. You get up and you fight in your house. You don't just sit there and go head to head with somebody. If somebody legit pushed you down, what do you get up and do? You get up and you crack them and you go to war.
Now, they did cut it off, right? So it's not like as soon as he got pushed down, they ended the night. But I don't know. Goldberg at least does pop a number still. I mean, granted, I don't know if you can just say it was the legends being advertised or the fact that people were tuning in to see who that big name that showed up, which ended up being Goldberg. But he pops a number. I mean, I've seen it on YouTube. Like him or don't like him, when Goldberg's around, people tune in. So
I wish they would take the legends and have them walk somebody down to the ring as a manager of the night. WWE, are you listening? I know you watched the show. Have your legends walk somebody down the aisle. Give the guy the rub. You're wasting your time. Go ahead, Virtue.
Now, let's piggyback off that. Who do you think it's a few weeks early, but let's get it out of the way here. We have a men's Royal Rumble match and a women's. Who is Big Vito's favorites to win each one of those? I'll tell you mine first. I'm not even going to think any surprise because it's the pandemic. Nobody there at the shows. They're doing them in a Thunderdome. I'm going basic, and I'm reaching on the first one, and I know you'll definitely disagree with me. I'm going to say Daniel Bryan because I know they've held him back for various reasons we've discussed on the show, speculation why we think. I think it's going to be time they're going to push him to a main event job. So Daniel Bryan, I'm picking for the men's, and Charlotte to win back-to-back for the women's. That's just my picks, being safe, as if WWE's mailing it in because of the pandemic. But I want to hear – everybody else wants to hear Big Vito's picks on those two matches.
If you're going to do the women's Royal Rumble, my two picks would be DeVille and Dana Brooke.
So have either one of them win it? Sonya Deville, I'm behind that.
Sonya Deville because she just came back. She's got the look. Dana Brooke because they haven't done anything significant. She's on the Lana train, right? So Lana, they do something. They finally give us something, and it produced numbers. I think Dana Brooke just needs to get over that hump. And I mean, her work is improved. She looks good. I think that she could do it. DeVille, on the other hand, heel. She looks good. She could definitely handle her business. I'd like to see either one of those win. The Royal Rumble match for the men. I don't want to see Otis. I don't want to see any
I
lame,
agree.
stupid ass cock and bull stuff. I mean, that's a tough one. I mean, you pick Daniel Bryan as your safe bet.
Well, because I've heard these rumblings of a feud with Roman, and it never happened last year or a couple of years ago.
But how many
So
feuds can you have with Roman? You got Goldberg, you got Daniel Bryan, you got this one, you got that one. Guys, if you have to pick somebody, right, who can run the Royal Rumble, who you're going to get a match with, would you say Dolph Ziggler?
that would shock the world, but they've given him so many shots and he's failed. Not just the way they booked him. Not that he's failed. He's a great worker. I think that would be a huge reach. I don't think they're going to go that route. I think they're going to go. I think a Lesnar is more likely to return and win it.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, aside from Lesnar, if you had to pick the reliable worker who could pull off a 5-star match and get you to WrestleMania,
Ziggler, yeah.
so I'd say Dolph Ziggler, because I don't think anybody else in there is.
What about pushing the next generation and trying to get somebody elevated? What about a Big E? Rumbling's about him trying to get to that next level.
I think he needs a successful title run before he does anything, because they tried him before as a singles and he failed.
He is the Intercontinental Champion. He did beat Sami Zayn for that, so he currently has that.
Right. So he already has something. So if he wins the Royal Rumble, that means they're going to, when you win the Royal Rumble and you're a champion, they're gaming you to be heavyweight champ. I don't see him as heavyweight champ. Just don't.
And then what's the chances that we could see a return of Ronda Rousey in the Women's Royal Rumble? Any at all?
To make an appearance, yes. To win the Royal Rumble, no. I think if Charlotte wins and Rousey comes and lays her out, I think you get more pop out of that.
Yeah, and Becky just had a baby, so we can't even
not yet.
Out indefinitely. Yeah. Okay, well, we had to talk about that because it's 2021. Now, here's the one I think Vito's going to have a lot to say. Some people have, as soon as this angle happened on SmackDown, I was like, why? I like wrestlers to be built up, right? And if WWE uses NXT, they have Intercontinental Championships, right, to get people established to who these wrestlers are in the WWE bubble. I don't care what wrestlers do outside of WWE. If it's NWA, and let's face it, NWA post-2000 was not NWA of the Ric Flair era. But Adam Pearce, who's played an authority figure for the better part of a year, all of a sudden now is getting lured in to face, it looks like, Roman Reigns at the Royal Rumble, where Roman would defend his Universal title. Now, I think they're making it like Roman is just wanting to have an easy challenger, and here is Adam Pearce. I can't believe they would go through with this. Roman had a pretty good angle with Jey Uso, right? Now, Jay's kind of his cousin lackey, but it's working. We still don't know what they're going to do with Jimmy yet or any other members of the family. They did a little thing with Owens, right? Owens had a little credibility from his past. Adam Pearce, and what has he ever done in WWE? And I'm not saying he's not a great worker. He might be one of the best in-ring workers. I don't know. But these NWA fans were coming at me at Twitter, and I'm talking pre-Billy Corgan NWA, the big gold belt, and then some wrestlers, indie wrestlers, saying that I'm disrespecting Adam Pearce. Look, it's not him. It's the way they're using that character. To me, Vito, does not make sense. Tell the world what you think. Adam Pearce mixing it up with Roman.
Adam Pearce was the NWA heavyweight champion.
True.
Kudos. Adam Pearce couldn't sniff a job with the WWE during his prime, couldn't sniff a job at ECW, couldn't sniff a job at TNA, couldn't sniff a contract. He was not good enough. Plain and simple. There were too many stars and too many people in the way for him to be anything in the wrestling business. They did not think he was worthy enough to be a WWE superstar. They gave him a backstage job as a trainer. Now he's working as the booking guy. He's very smart. He's intellectual. He has knowledge. in-ring ability, he just did not cut it. Body-wise, shape-wise, look-wise, he didn't have it. That's it. He's got John Laurinaitis written all over him. John Laurinaitis was famous in Japan. John Laurinaitis was a public figure, never made it in the US, was the shits. Had the authority figure, made a match with Cena, did his thing, and that was it. This is the same garbage. This is the same thing.
I mean, I have people telling me like this is awesome for him. He deserved it a long time ago because of his accomplishments in NWA and the Indies. And I'm just like, okay, great for him there, but this is the WWE, and casual fans are probably like, why is this general manager, this authority figure guy getting a match against the big dog champion?
Because there's nobody there. There's no Shawn Michaels. There's no Bret Hart. There's no Flair. There's no Hogan. There's no Macho. There's no Big Vito.
Well,
there's
that's
no
true.
Rio. There's no nobody.
But you go right to Adam Pearce instead of like giving Cesaro a chance or Big E. You know what I mean?
They have nothing. When you have nothing and you're pulling backstage figures out to wrestle, you have nothing. They are grasping.
So does this match happen then at the Royal Rumble and Roman just dominates him, or does somehow Adam Pearce turn into a viable opponent because they end up choosing someone else to face Roman as like a swerve? What do you think?
If they put any credibility in Adam Pearce gets the best of Roman Reigns,
oh God.
That's just shit all over their heavyweight champion. That's worse than being pushed down by
unless they bring Brock in to challenge Reigns. Like, hey, we got someone to challenge you, Roman, and he's gonna set you straight. And it's somebody like that. Like, you know what I mean? But come on. That's the only way out of that I can see.
I can't see it, guys. If Adam Pearce steps in the ring and he knocks down Roman Reigns and he's wrestling him, that means that any writer who's backstage at the WWE can come out and challenge the heavyweight champion and give him a run for the money. You just discredited your whole locker room.
Well said, Vito. I mean, I was kind of, on your page with that, but I was waiting. I really didn't say too much on Twitter other than I just didn't like the way they did that angle-wise. Again, I'm not saying – again, go ahead.
Discredit the whole WWE locker room if Adam Pearce knocks around Roman Reigns. You can't have a writer come in and dominate your champion or get any offense. You will disrespect wrestling. You'll disrespect the locker room. You're disrespecting the champion and everything you work for. To get smacked by a guy who sharpens pencils, makes coffee, and writes a script.
And then we have to just, and if they do proceed forth with it just for a squash match, all that for that, So anyway, Vito, you know how I like to do the thing at the end here where it's what's on Big Vito's mind? Well, this is a perfect topic today. We had the whole thing with the U.S. Capitol take place a few days ago, and the MAGA, the Trump supporters going there and doing what they did, police turning, opening barricades, letting them through, whether it's a conspiracy that, Donald Trump's trying to create a coup or not. What happened to this country when stuff like this is happening? I mean, basically, it's what's on Big Vito's mind, and I figure that might be something you want to talk about.
Guys, everybody knows I'm not into politics. I don't vote. It's not my thing. Growing up in the 60s, okay, when you had the assassination of President Kennedy, you had Vietnam, you had President Nixon, you had racial riots. The country never got over the assassination of President Kennedy. It took them a long time. Vietnam War lingered until 1973, and after that, with the abuse of the soldiers returning home. President Nixon doing bad by the country, that left a bad taste in Americans' mouths, right? 9/11, you watched that, and that was horrible. I was part of that in a strange way, but watching that happen, another horrible thing that the country never got over. It took them years to get over.
Yep.
Watching the people go to the Capitol building on the President of the United States say so, trying to overtake the government, and watching these people go in the Capitol building was such a disgrace of being an American. It made being an American look weak to the rest of the world. We look like a bunch of fools. And to think that there was something, that guillotine thing where you hang people that was outside, you're watching 40, 50, 100,000 people charge that building. There were people who died over, and you know what? And this is over somebody who lost an election. He's supposed to be our leader. Handle this with dignity and grace and be very prestigious and say, I concede, I lost. I'm going to do everything in my power to make right and help the new president in, just like President Obama did for him. Not to do this. And for the actions of what happened, this could never happen again. We will never recover from this for another 10 years. God forbid now some country out there says, the Americans are weak, the United States is weak, and they decide they want to go to war with us. What do we do? Yeah. Say there are other consequences that come from this. What do we do? The Capitol building will never be the same. What happens if they would have caught one of those people they were looking for and those people lynched that person?
Would have been nuts.
Is that a record of treason? You're going to try to overtake the country, overtake the government. Mm-hmm. The rebel flag, the Confederate flag in the White House. Everybody has their beliefs. That's fine. You're good. But you go into a place where it's sacred. It's just like with the Pope, and you go into the Vatican. That's sacred. Imagine people raiding the Vatican and chopping and hitting the gold off the walls. You don't do that.
Nope. Crazy, man. Just crazy times. But hey, he's out of office. He's out of office here soon. So, by the way, update: the Cleveland Browns are up 7-0 because of a defensive touchdown.
Oh boy!
Early in the game, 10 minutes.
10 minutes ago. All right.
That's all I got for getting color this week, Vito.
All right, close it out.
So you can follow Vito on Twitter at the Big Vito Brand. You can follow me on Twitter at NoDQ_Virtue. Thanks for watching this on Twitch. You'll hear it on Anchor, and it'll also be up over on NoDQ.com. But this has been Getting Color for Big Vito. I am Virtue. Thank you for watching and listening. We'll see you next time.